Great. So good morning. This is the Livable Streets Coalition, and I'm Delegate Robin Lewis. If you look in your chat box, you'll see the agenda. The meeting is being recorded. We're going to just do a quick welcome, introduce two special guests, and then dive into our agenda. Our goal, our objectives for the meeting are first to learn about slow streets. Next, there will be a presentation by Carol Kachadurian, who is a transportation planner, and she's also the founder of DBL Tilde Collaborative. And then we will have a little Q&A. There'll be some polls during Carol's presentation, which is awesome. You'll love it. And then we're going to create Livable Streets Coalition work groups. Some of you have been around for a while since we started this project a year ago. And we've had a couple of meetings and lots of conversation, but it's time for us to get to work. So we'll be creating some work groups at this meeting. You'll come away, if you so choose, with an assignment for a work group. We can really start digging in, making plans, and transforming our streets together. We will talk about slow streets you might want to request and then go through next steps, okay? Before I forget, we have two special guests for joining us this morning. One is Professor Nicole Labruto of Johns Hopkins University's Anthropology Department. Professor Labruto, can you wave? I can see you, but I don't know if I thanks.
Hi, everyone.
With us. Professor Labruto is one of the founders and directors of the Ecological Design Collaborative at Hopkins, which is an amazing organization. And we hope that there may be opportunities to work together, bringing notions of human-centered design to street transformation. So thank you for being here. Our second special guest is Liam Davis, D-A-I-V-S, sorry, not David. Liam is our government affairs liaison with the Baltimore City Department of Transportation, and recently finished years of service as the Greektown neighborhood president. So great to have you and everyone else. With that, I think we will dive in. Oh, we got a question. Good morning. Okay, no worries. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no worries. No worries, Robin. I think we'll get started with our presentation. Carol, you're up next, and I'll let you get the screen shared, and we'll dive right in.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and can everybody hear me? Okay, let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen.
You want to do,
there we go. I want to do this. What I'd like for everyone to do.
Actually, Carol, okay, there you go. Got it. Now we can
let me go back to the beginning. Hang on, I had this in the wrong place. Okay, so this is me. I'm Carol. I'm with Double Tilde Collaborative, and I'm here courtesy of AARP Maryland. So we're going to talk about slow and livable streets today. And I'd like to get started by asking you an initial question of kind of what your top priorities are for making streets slower and more livable. So if you could go to this address, menti. If you have a second device, like a smartphone or a tablet, or even go to it on your laptop, go to menti.com. I'm going to actually launch that, and then enter the code. I have an issue with my, now I have a difficult connection. I have an issue with my monitor, so I'm just with my laptop now.
So you want us to go to www.menti.com?
I do.
Okay, so everybody can do that?
Well, we're actually going to start with what neighborhood you live in. Yeah, answer what neighborhood, just start with what neighborhood you live in. We have 2 from Patterson Place, 1 from McElderry Park.
Oh, that should be Patterson Park, guys.
Patterson Park, I'm sorry.
Patterson Place is not a real thing. Patterson Park.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't catch that, Carol.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
My fault, guys.
I'm still learning the neighborhoods, and I just was.
It's not your fault. It's my fault. Patterson Place thinks they're real, but they're not. It's Patterson Park.
We live in Patterson Place, delegate.
You know I'm teasing you. You know I'm messing with you.
Okay, so we've got 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm not sure how many folks are here. 13. Okay, has everybody had it? Oops, one more. Other? Oh, we have 6. Boy, curious to know where, what neighborhood folks are in, because you're, okay.
So of the people who live in other, do you want to just type the name of your neighborhood in the chat so we don't interrupt the flow? Just out of curiosity.
Highlandtown. Are you seeing, I'm not looking at the chat box. Are you? What neighborhoods do we know?
I'll take a look for you, Carol. Don't you worry, I got it.
Okay.
So Upper Fells, Guilford, Chevy Chase, that must be Professor Michael. Yep. Laurelville, Dickeyville.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next question. And the next question is, what is your top priority? Just pick one for making streets more livable.
And can we choose more than one or only one, Carol?
Only one.
Okay, guys.
And you're going to see that we're gonna see if it differs by neighborhood. So McElderry, it says slowing traffic. Butchers Hill says slowing traffic. Everybody's, yeah, this is interesting. So Patterson Park, increasing safe options for walking, biking. Butchers Hill there too. So is everybody that wanted to vote voting, or are you still kind of pondering it? So right now, it seems like the top one is slowing traffic. We've got 3 for increasing safe options for walking and biking. And that's primarily from, it looks like it's Butchers Hill and Patterson Park. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you to, we're going to have some other questions in a little bit. So I would ask you to be prepared to go back to menti.com with this this code, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go back to the slides. Let's see if we can get this new share going. And it will work. There we go. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I thought about when working on this this presentation was what's important for this community, and I thought about the community goals as I understand them. As we saw from that, last Mentimeter question, slowing down traffic is a real top priority, and another goal is to create livable streets and places. But most importantly of all of this, the way to do that is to empower and include everybody living in the community in that process. So keep that in mind. So now we're going to go back to Mentimeter. I'm going to ask you how familiar you are with these 2 things that Baltimore has: Slow Streets program and Complete Streets. Let me go back to Mentimeter and share my screen for that. And then we'll go to those questions. Okay. How familiar are you with slow streets? We have some options here. And again, there are no right or wrong answers. Part of doing this is understanding what those of us that are supporting Delegate Lewis on this, how we can do our work best so that you're familiar with it and feel empowered as well. So we had 2 folks that actually submitted a nomination for a slow street. Okay. It's good to know that most of you are at least somewhat familiar. We have one person who hasn't heard of it. We're going to do a little bit about slow streets today, but there's certainly a lot more information on Baltimore's website, and Liam will talk a little bit about it after I'm done, so you'll learn more. Okay. Let's go to that next question. Now, how familiar are you with complete streets? We like to think that the names of these programs are kind of a definition of what they are, but sometimes they're not. Okay. So again, the majority of you have either heard of complete streets. Okay. And again, the colors are showing up for the neighborhoods that you're from, so that's great. Okay. I think that's it for that question. So let's go back to sharing to the presentation. Guess that's here. Okay. So as a preface to slow streets, we're going to talk about slow streets briefly. You may have heard, you may have observed, you may experience that more people are out walking since March, since we were going home and staying at home because of the pandemic. And in many places, there weren't enough places to walk or to bike. And this is a wonderful photo, I think, from Paris of people just taking over the street. And in addition to that, many people in Baltimore and other communities, such as in other cities, found that crossing the roadway still held some risk for them. So one response was this program called Slow Streets. And what it is I'll get these to come up. A program to provide room for physical activity for people while walking within their neighborhood while respecting social distancing. The way it works is you temporarily close the street to through traffic, although emergency vehicles and service vehicles can still come through. These are some photos of slow streets in other cities, and many cities have used them: San Diego, Minneapolis, New York, Los Angeles, Oakland, Boston, Denver, and Baltimore. So Baltimore's Slow Street program was rolled out in July. It's modeled in part on Denver's program, and Liam will tell you a lot more about it. This is a map of the slow streets that have been implemented so far in the city. And this is a map in our Livable Streets Coalition area that are the aqua ones, the blue ones here, are the ones in our neighborhoods that have been implemented. So if you have
Can I jump in? Can I jump in? I'm so sorry. Some of you may be aware that Linwood Avenue, South Linwood, is also a slow street right now, but that is not in the Livable Streets Coalition footprint. That's why Carol has highlighted our footprint. Okay, thank you.
So have you all experienced these streets as well as Linwood Avenue? Maybe in the chat, tell us if you have. So slow streets is one tool, and they've been wildly popular. And in many communities, they're going to stay in place until kind of the emergency or stay-at-home orders are lifted. Some communities are finding that they're very successful and are choosing to convert those slow streets permanently to be slow streets. And maybe Liam can tell us if Baltimore is considering that. I don't want to put you on the spot, Liam. So other pieces of the Livable Streets puzzle, in addition to slow streets, are complete streets. And complete streets are streets designed for use by all people, regardless of age or ability, and regardless of mode of travel. So the city, Baltimore, passed a complete streets resolution in 2010. And 2 years later, this wonderful plan that Delegate Lewis was a volunteer to be a part of, and city planners and many folks were involved in creating a Southeast Baltimore Complete Streets Plan. It's a really, it covers our coalition area as well as areas south of it, down through Fells Point. There's a lot of great information in it. And due to kind of quirky circumstances, I will say nothing in this plan, to my knowledge, has been implemented yet. So we are really using it as a resource for our work in the Baltimore Livable Streets Coalition. And you'll see some of that in the next few slides. The city is now working very hard. You have this image on the right to develop complete streets guidelines that will be used citywide. And these two documents I want to show you, these are the goals in blue that are in the Southeast Baltimore Complete Streets Plan. I highlighted, bolded some of the words that are really important. All ages and ability, connectivity, traffic calming, connecting people, involve local people. The green box on the right are the guiding principles in the Complete Streets design document. And you can see that many of them are the same: safety, accessible, improved mobility, community enhancements, exhibit good neighborhood values. So, so these two documents are not incompatible, and they actually build on each other. But what's important in these documents is that whatever happens in the neighborhood is really envisioned by community members, which is why the coalition that Delegate Lewis has put together and your participation in this discussion today is so important. We want, the goal is for you to understand what's possible and feel that you have the knowledge and feel empowered to help make that happen. So part of that is envisioning what your street could be. I don't live in any of the neighborhoods in the project area, but I did take the liberty of envisioning what a street could look like. I started with Elwood Avenue, which was, this block was nominated as a slow street. And while it was not selected, maybe it will, because we've got some wonderful visualization for what that block could be. And it's really from where this street is, where this mini mart is, down to here. So I want to show that to you. We had a professional do these visualizations. I didn't do it. I think you'll be as excited as I am about it. So this is looking at the block from where the mini mart is. You'll see it's got parking on both sides, and it's got motorists traveling in both directions. It's got nice wide sidewalks and some trees. But if we take a look at that and we did a visualization of blocking traffic, which is what the slow streets does. It blocks through traffic. Use some beautiful cement planters and tables, benches, additional planters. We thought if we could extend that sidewalk even more, move all of the parking over to this side and have it be back in angle parking. You'll notice that we've kept access to that mini mart. And what this means is that people can use this street. Motorists that are driving down it that are local travel really need to accommodate each other and be patient with each other as they're traveling down the street. So this is what it looks like from the end where the mini mart is. This is a photo of the opposite end at Orleans, Fayette, and honestly, this is the place where there was this summer an older adult who was walking here was hit by a motorist. I don't know if Delegate Lewis, was she seriously injured?
Right. So thank you, Carol. This intersection, Elwood and Fayette, is notoriously dangerous. Yes, an elderly neighbor was mowed down as she was crossing the street on her way to the Aldi's, and she ended up in the hospital for months and then in physical rehab for months. I don't know if she's home yet. In addition, this house there on the northwest corner where Carol's got the arrow, that house has been crashed into multiple times by racing cars. That just happened, I don't know, about 6 weeks ago. Someone came flying down Fayette and drove into that house. So this is an important intersection.
And so because slow streets is blocking the street at both ends, the block at both ends, we saw the opposite end. This is the visualization for this end of the block. And see, again, we have these beautiful cement planters. We've got some chairs, a table and a bench. The parking is here, and you can see the other end is blocked here. So that's looking at it from this direction. So this is slow streets. And then I was thinking, you know, what the Complete Streets, Southeast Baltimore Complete Streets Plan has in it this wonderfully valuable concept of connecting places along a street. And one of the things that it emphasizes connecting green spaces. So I took another look at Elwood, and I thought, you know, when you look at it, Elwood Park is to the north, and there's another park up here. There's also a career center. And I thought there might be a couple of other places where using the Complete Streets concept in the Southeast Baltimore Complete Streets Plan, we could do a little bit more. Not slow streets, but make the streets more livable. So the first one we're going to look at is this area right at Elwood Park. And the first thing I noticed was that there's a basketball court here and a tot lot here. There really isn't a logical pathway from this street to get into it. And so I thought, well, let's see if we can create a sidewalk and a crosswalk, maybe a little bit of a curb extension so that children and other people that are traveling to that park have a designated place. I was really intrigued by this intersection, which when you look at it is pretty big. There's a lot of room out there. I mean, I went back to I remembered in the Southeast Baltimore Complete Streets Plan that there's this wonderful intersection of Montfort, Fate, and Essex, farther south, closer to Fells Point, that is the same configuration. And look at the visualization here. So I'm not particularly polished at this, but I went back and I looked and I thought we can do better at this particular place, and just took that idea and said, let's see if we can highlight this for better biking and people that are on bikes and walking access to this park, create a little pathway through this triangle, crosswalk here leading up to this wider sidewalk and curb ramps here. So that was my idea. And so think about this. Hopefully you'll be thinking of places close to where you live, where there are opportunities as well. And then I continued north up Elwood Avenue and got to this intersection, Now Elwood Avenue dead ends into Madison Street, which goes westbound one way. There is a bus stop on the corner. And I saw this in Google Earth and Street View, and I thought this woman looks kind of at risk. So putting in a simple crosswalk with some curb extensions would be really great. And what it might do is if people are traveling along here and want to turn left onto Elwood, this little curb extension here and here would force them to slow down a little bit. So when people are crossing the street, they're not quite as at risk. Now there is a bus stop across on the other side of Madison, and it took me a while to really come to the conclusion that maybe something there could be done as well for people that are taking the bus. There's a pedestrian crossing sign here, but there isn't anything else there for people. So I did a little bit more thinking. There's that bus stop, and I thought if we could just extend this little curb extension around a little bit, it'll go slow traffic a little bit here, and put in a really nice high visibility striped crosswalk. This, I believe, is a parking lane, so there is the option here of creating a curb extension. So what we're doing is we're shortening this crossing distance. People are not at risk as much of conflict with a motorist when they're walking or biking across. And remember, this is a green space. So that's one option. Then I remember there's this wonderful new thing. It's a portable bus loading pad. So if we look at this bus stop from the other direction, there's a wonderful opportunity to install this bus stop loading pad right here in the parking area. You'll see, for those of you who might be concerned about stormwater flow, it still goes through here. This actually creates more space for people to load the bus. It means the bus doesn't have to pull out of the flow of traffic. It stops, it creates that space for itself. And in addition to this additional amount of space, there's now room for a shelter where there wasn't before on the sidewalk. And there's enough room for people to flow around. So this is my vision for what Elwood could be down from Fayette all the way up to Madison. And I got a lot of these ideas from, I'm gonna just click here, from an organization called Better Block. Are you seeing the Better Block website on your screen now? Yes, okay. And this is an organization that does a lot of the same work that we're doing here. And they have this wonderful, wonderful library of treatments. So you can see, this is a curb extension, this is the center crossing island. I would encourage you to go on their website. I put a QR code, you can snap that, or you'll have this after our meeting today to go look at it and kind of dream about what might fit into your neighborhood. What they do is they offer the plans for these various things. I love this little mobility parklet. They offer the plans and they tell you what materials you need to build them, and then you can get the plans at no cost. So that's a really great option to have. So let's go back to the presentation now and just think about those things. So next thing, we're going to go back to Mentimeter. Hopefully you've been thinking, you've been listening and watching and thinking, you know, I've got an idea for a block near where I live. So let's go back to Mentimeter. And if you've got an idea for a block, whoops, we're going to ask you to go back to Mentimeter and to enter that idea for a block, or a couple of blocks. Remember, it's menti.com and enter the code 164046. Is this working the right way? And honestly, if you're having a little bit of difficulty with it, and oh, we got one. All of Orleans, we agree, yeah. Potomac, Elwood, and Lakeview, okay. Delegate Lewis, are these ones that are familiar to you?
Yeah, so far these are all in the Livable Streets footprint.
Yeah.
Carol, if I could, while we're waiting for folks to, it might interest you. I'll share with you some of the chat that we had.
Great.
And it seems like there were some interesting thoughts. And I think people, because we all live in Baltimore, we're accustomed to hostile, violent, unpleasant, socially disordered streets. And I think people are having some challenges imagining what it would mean to create a street where people could linger. In the chat, some people said things like, I do not believe Elwood is suitable for cafe lifestyle. Some people said a cafe in the street is not a pressing economic development. Someone else said something like, the area doesn't impress me as being safe. So we are all Baltimoreans and we've all been conditioned to think of our streets in a certain way. And I feel like it might be helpful to people to hear you talk about, so I think maybe you might not have been fully understood when you described Elwood and the slow streets treatment on Elwood. People saw an attempt to create a cafe. So could you maybe say a little bit about that just for a minute before the poll results?
Sure. So slow streets is intended to create safe places for people to walk. The tables and benches on Elwood were not intended as a cafe, but rather as opportunities, yes, for people to linger. I don't want to minimize the concerns that people have about violence on the streets. I will say that other communities have found that when they consciously create places such as what you saw on the visualization for Elwood, or even when they create what's called play streets that are in existence like once a month or once a week, that people over time experience them, enjoy them, tend to come out, and that the kind of violence or the kind of threat for physical violence tends to dissipate. That's what other communities have experienced. Certainly, and so I think in Baltimore, in this neighborhood, if it's on Elwood or another street, doing a 1 or a 2 day pilot of those changes is a way to see what works for people in the neighborhood, what kinds of features they would like, and B, if they begin to have that sense of more safety, more lessen the risk of violence, that the level of violence tends to feel not quite as high. It can be a process. Does that help?
I think that's very helpful. Thank you, Carol. And someone just reminded everyone that I think it's this weekend on Charles Street in Midtown. They are actually closing down Charles Street to create a sociable environment for humans, removing cars and centering people. And I think it's a way for those of us, and thank you for that reminder, Brian. I think it's a way for people in Baltimore to begin to imagine how our streets can be different.
Yeah.
It can be warm and friendly and lively and welcoming. So I'll shut up and let you do your thing, Carol. Sorry.
No, but I think it's good. And I do think that most people want to create community and to create a safe place that they can walk through, bike through, in their daily lives with their families and their friends. And when there's a fear that you won't be safe, it does take some time and effort to believe that you can make some changes, and it can be slow and it can be over time, but hopefully that will happen. I think we're at the end. So yeah, we did. Do you want Delegate Lewis, do you want to talk any more about some of the streets that were mentioned here, or because we're just about done?
Yeah, well, thank you, Carol. Yeah, let's do that. I love the request for all of Orleans, and whoever wrote that, you're going to find yourself on a work group, okay? Highland and Goff in Highlandtown, that would be beautiful. That's actually, Goff is quite intimate and human already at scale. It's a very narrow street with lots of trees, but the intersection is very unfriendly and physically unsafe. So that would be a great place to think about more treatments. I think there are some bollards there and some temporary bump outs already. We could do more. I love North Elwood. Yes, agree totally. Milton and Patterson. Milton's a very pretty street and could be better. Goff at Chapel, that's Upper Fells or Butcher's Hill. That would be very cute. I love that. Orleans again, you're going to find Orleans. Everyone who said Orleans, you're going to be on a work group. Look out. Luzerne, great idea. I love this Patterson Place, McElderry with middle. I love that. So whoever said that, that's at the northwesterly edge of the Livable Streets footprint. And I would love to see an opportunity to do more. And those are great suggestions. Oh, Key Highway at the Science Center. Whoever said that, a gold star. Terrifying, horrible, completely unnecessarily ridiculous space. Is that you, Dan Richmond et al? Yeah, okay. You are going to be on a special work group, all you and me. McElderry, Middle East, love that again. McElderry, oh, sorry, Pratt, Baltimore. Oh, here's a brave person. Somebody wants to tackle one of the most inhumane roadways in our entire city, and that's President Street. So Carol, that's outside of the Livable Streets footprint. It is an important intersection in the heart of downtown. That's probably one of the most dangerous. I'd love to see some crash data for that, Brian Seal. But anyway, these are all great, and inside the footprint or out. I love seeing that everyone's beginning to imagine opportunities all over the area that we're looking at. And I look forward to putting all of you on a work group. Look out.
Thank you.
You did this to yourselves. Thank you, Carol. I'll stop there.
That's okay. We have one last question if I can get to it here. I wonder why I can't. And that we want to ask you, shoot. Okay, well, we were going to ask you again. I think I've got some connection problems here. We're going to ask you to rethink, ask you again, what your priorities are we asked you at the beginning, now that we've had this conversation, we wanted to see if anything had changed. And I don't know that I can get to it. I wonder why I can't. I don't know. Is it showing up? Is it showing up on your screen as that question? No. Okay. Well, I guess maybe we can just ask, has anybody's, I'm going to X out of this because it's just not working. Has anybody's thoughts about their priority changed from our discussion? I'm going to see if I can get back into it. You can, I don't know if you want to unmute or chat if any of your priorities have changed.
So thank you, Carol. I think it would be, if everyone doesn't mind, if you could type in the chat whether your ideas. Carol, you can poke around there, but we'll just in the chat box.
Yeah.
Does anyone find themselves in a different state of mind now than you were at the beginning of this presentation? There were several of you I remember seem to have said that you weren't quite familiar with slow streets and complete streets. Do you feel you've learned more? Are you, have your perspectives on the opportunity, the benefits changed? You can type in the chat box. Okay, Brian Seal is saying, when you make larger roads, people are more likely to take larger roads because they're easier and faster. Yeah, that's, induced demands, okay. Any perspectives on livable and slow streets? Dan Richmond, Sam Blau, oh, hi guys. Sort of changing your perspective from slowing traffic in the abstract to aiming for better walking. Yeah, that's the goal. Thank you. Is that you, Sam? Yeah, thank you. How about Father Michael? Are your perspectives the same or changed? Use the chat. Miss Mary, I'm counting on you to be my truth teller and my arbiter of all things. What are your thoughts? And I see lots of other folks. Kurt from Upper Fells. I'd love to know your thoughts if they've changed or you have more ideas. Marlon, where are you, Marlon? I know you want to do Orleans. Oh, there you are. I realize that wanting safer crosswalks requires slower traffic. So that makes slowing the priority. Thank you, Marlon. Yeah, so people seem to, everyone seems thoughtful. They're musing, they're mellow. No one's in a state of belligerent, over excitement. Everyone's thinking, and that's great. So does that help, Carol?
That does, that does. And I think one of the things that I think Delegate Lewis and all of us are hoping for is that in addition to the slow streets that the city has installed, that we can find a way to convert some other blocks or streets to slow streets or add some complete streets elements, either on a demonstration basis so that people in these, you all can experience them and feel more comfortable with it. And then go from there, inspire more. I guess that's what it's about.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Carol. Excuse me, if there are questions, please feel free to use the chat box. At this point, Amelia, timekeeper, how are we doing? Are we in the danger zone?
It's 11:45, so we're halfway through.
Okay, we may not need the as long as we thought. I'd really love to use this time while everyone's musing and thinking to give Nicole a chance to say a few words about the Ecological Design Collective. Nicole, if you feel comfortable with that. If not, I could give the floor to Liam to talk about Baltimore streets. Nicole, you ready?
If Liam could go first, it would be helpful.
Okay, get your thoughts
Thank you.
together.
Thank
Liam,
you.
we'd love to hear from you about the status of the Baltimore Slow Streets program. And some of us really want an explanation why our requests were not fulfilled.
Sure. Thank you. First and foremost, Delegate Lewis, I want to thank you for having me, and more importantly, for putting this together. This is such a great group. It's an exciting group, and just the discussions that are being had here today are really important. And this is really exciting to take part in. So I'm going to share my screen as well. Let me bring up. Let's see, I got a lot of stuff open here. So Slow Streets Baltimore. Obviously, folks have seen over the past few months, we've seen a lot of traffic barriers go up across the city. And just to give you a rundown of the program, this was shared a little bit in the last presentation, but we have a FAQ page that kind of summarizes the program for the city of Baltimore, Baltimore City Slow Streets. The important thing to remember is Slow Streets is not something that's unique to Baltimore City. It's really an initiative that has been pushed across the world and across North America as an emergency response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. It is designed to give people more space to go outdoors and exercise, walk, play, socialize, and also maintain social distance. The recommended 6 feet of social distance from folks can be difficult on your traditional sidewalk in the city, depending where you are. So this program, again, is really designed to give more space to people. And it does fall in line with some of our longer term goals when we talk about complete streets. And then some of our other special programs we're doing in response to the pandemic, such as the outdoor table and parklet program for our restaurants. And we'll get into that. So just to give some historical background, early on in the pandemic, so I would say in the spring, maybe April, May, DOT started a slow streets pilot program. So we are a member of NACTO, which is a national organization of urban transportation organizations in the United States. So we had been hearing and learning of slow streets in the earliest stages of the pandemic, and DOT worked to implement a pilot program in the early spring. We started out at Lake Montebello, where we closed the Curran Drive and the additional road that encircles the lake. We then went on to implement similar treatments on one of the roadways going through Druid Hill Park, and then also Linwood Avenue, that is just south of the catchment area of Livable Streets, was our third pilot street. And right after, around the time the Linwood treatment was implemented, the Baltimore City Council introduced legislation. It's Council Bill 20-0532. I can pull that up right here. Here's the actual bill itself. This is the third reader copy. And I just want to say, all of the information that I'm sharing today is available online. This is public information, so I encourage folks to check it out. Here again is the bill. And essentially, my understanding is that the council really took a similar piece of legislation that was introduced in the New York City Council, and they kind of used, the same kind of percentages that New York City was looking at. So what does this legislation do? The legislation required Baltimore City DOT to implement a minimum of 25 miles of slow streets across the city of Baltimore. Within that, there were certain requirements built in to ensure geographic equity, so that it wouldn't only just be the neighborhoods that are essentially knowledgeable of slow streets or essentially complete streets. The city council was very adamant in making sure that this program, there was an opportunity for it to be felt across every single council district and corner of the city. So of those 25 miles, there was a requirement of at least 1 mile of slow streets being implemented in each council district. And then no council district was to receive over 15% of the total mileage. So what that looks like is just under 4 miles would be the maximum that one council district could get if we hung around that 25-mile total. Today, we have surpassed the 25-mile minimum. I think we're just under 26. And we are shifting gears from implementation towards maintenance of the program and program evaluation. One of the great things about the council bill is after we hit that 25-mile minimum, the Department of Transportation we're now required to, formally evaluate, the successes of the program as well as the challenges, things that we really need to work on, things we really need to improve upon. So I'm super excited about that. And people are going to be learning more and more about that very soon, because public feedback is a very integral piece of that puzzle. So what will happen is this Slow Streets FAQ page that is on our website, and for anyone who hasn't visited it, it's really easy. Just Google Slow Streets Baltimore. This FAQ page should be the first link that pops up. And as was shared in the presentation, there is this map where you can zoom in and see each slow street that has actively been implemented across the city. This general area over here is kind of where most of the folks in this conversation are familiar with. But as you can see, it's really going across the whole city, where we have slow streets implemented. But anyway, as we look at what this evaluation period is going to involve, updates to the website will include a link where people will be able to there will be a similar mapping tool. It's not going to be the same. It'll be an interactive mapping tool under Populous, which is a vendor that we use. And people will literally be able to click on a slow street and say, thumbs up, thumbs down. Like, hey, we really love it, or hey, this needs to be improved, or maybe we were big fans. This is going to be really key for us to understand at DOT, our planning and our slow streets team, to understand, okay, what's working, what's not. We're also going to be conducting a formal study that'll be published. I know that Director Sharkey shared with our team a study that the city of Oakland had recently done. I believe they implemented somewhere around 22, 23 miles of slow streets. And it's just going to be an honest discussion about what we need to be doing better, and hey, if this really worked, let's do it again. So I am really, really excited about that. But again, the great thing about this page is that there's a lot of really basic questions here where you can find out more information. Is this really in response to the COVID-19 pandemic? Yes, it is. What does it look like? So this is from this treatment here on Linwood is really from the from the pilot phase. I want to show a picture here. This right here is the more common barrier that you'll see out there today, that is from our, it's not from the pilot program, it's from the active program now. And it just has this standard sign that says road closed, local traffic only. And then for pedestrians that are curious to learn more about the program, we have a little informational sign here that really talks about what's Slow Streets and why we're doing it. Let's see. The program actually, in what's interesting that I hear, especially from the first presentation, about opening our streets up to more than just cars. The exciting thing is that Slow Streets is really only one of the emergency response programs that DOT has undertaken since the onset of the pandemic. The other one is our outdoor table program, where we've really waived right-of-way fees for restaurants and retail establishments to allow them to operate in public right-of-way at low cost, or in many cases no cost. And this includes the installation of parklets in areas where traditionally you would be parking cars. Some of the best examples of this are actually in Southeast Baltimore. Fells Point and Canton are great examples, but we have applications from all over the city, and we are actively working with neighborhoods and businesses and main streets to really help facilitate as positive of an environment as we can for businesses during these challenging times. The great thing that is exciting for me is, I think that, and exciting for everybody on this call, is I think that we're in the earliest, this is like the earliest example in the earliest stages of cities, including Baltimore, really rethinking about, hey, how do we best use public right-of-way? How do we best use public right-of-way in this new COVID-19 reality that, unfortunately, it's most likely not going to go away anytime soon. And really what it is it ties to complete streets, it ties to slow streets, and it's really about diversifying how we utilize right-of-way and really dedicating our roadways and our corridors to people and less to cars. And what I always like to say is, unfortunately, over the past several decades, at least a half century or more, the city and city leadership, unfortunately, had really prioritized our corridors for commuters. They thought that was the only way really for the city to survive as the nation suburbanized. And we designed our roads, we designed our corridors to get people in and out of the city as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, what that did was it made it easier for people to live outside of the city. And it kind of, unfortunately, contributed in some ways to our population decline, which is well documented. Today, the focus is more, we're gonna acknowledge the importance of regionalism and people who need to come into the city to conduct business. But we also want to make sure that we're designing our roadways and our corridors and our streets for the people who live here, which I'm really excited about.
Liam, thank you for emphasizing that the streets are in Baltimore for the people who live in Baltimore.
Yeah, and that livable streets.
Yeah, I hope you heard that. Liam, because I'm looking at the clock and I'm just wondering if you wanted to take just maybe 1 minute more to talk about, how slow streets are selected and why some of our requests weren't fulfilled and why we should keep applying. What should we think about?
So that's a great, and I understand the time. So based on the way the legislation was written, we were tied within the parameters that were, in the legislation. And as we were preparing for the program, we essentially procured enough material to implement just over 25 miles. We at DOT's received applications from all over the city, and unfortunately, we just were not able to implement every single slow streets application. Part of this next phase actually will involve every single applicant receiving a notice from DOT that kind of talks about, hey, you know, we understand you're interested. We're sorry that this wasn't chosen, but here's more information. And as we look at next year for slow streets, there might be an opportunity to look at your corridor again and consider opening. So that's an important piece, because right now internally we're discussing what does slow streets look like as we approach the winter season, because DOT is also the responsible agency for snow plowing, and it's a conversation that we're going to have with the city council, because obviously this emergency has extended a bit further than I think people anticipated. So there is a possibility that slow streets winds down temporarily in the winter, but would in all likelihood be reinstalled at an improved with an improved program in the spring. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay, so Liam, so what you're saying, so for the members of the Livable Coalition, if we're hearing you right, we have a couple of months to sort of put our heads together and think about, first of all, think about slow streets that we might want to request.
Yeah.
And secondly, maybe think about programming we might want to do.
Yes.
Thing that a lot of people have asked me, what's a slow street? All I see are barricades. What's the point? In Baltimore, unlike other cities, some of which Carol described, we haven't yet begun to activate the slow streets for people. All we've really done is said, slow car traffic, no car traffic, but we haven't embraced the street and made it a place for people to be. So is that something that, from your perspective, sitting in DOT, is that something that our group could maybe do in the next few months?
Yeah, and so another part of this next phase is, you know, in terms of evaluation component, we're also going to be rolling out like a community ambassador program, so that there's more ownership of these slow streets by the local communities. And I think that's where the programming really comes into play. You know, I think
speaking of play, what about play streets? Should we be thinking about organizing activities for kids to play in a socially distanced and safe way?
Sure, it could be. You know, obviously we want everyone to adhere to, you know, all the safety protocols that are recommended by our health experts in the middle of the pandemic. But, you know, I could see playing in the streets. I could see a socially distanced block party. Technically, we're not issuing block party permits because of the health pandemic. But if there's a slow streets and the community gets together, you know, I know the mayor, our current Mayor Young, used to always say, you know, if you guys don't want to get a block party permit, just talk to your neighbors and close the street down. So you didn't hear that from me. You heard that from the mayor. Just kidding. But you can use these slow streets barricades, you know, as an opportunity to get really creative. You know, but again, like when we look at the streets that weren't selected, we did get a number of streets. Like I think some people applied in North Baltimore to implement it on Northern Parkway. You know, there's certain corridors that are just not going to work. You know, you wouldn't see slow streets implemented on I-83, for example, obviously. So we're not implementing it on bus routes. We're not implementing them on truck routes. We're really trying to find corridors where it makes sense. And when we look at Linwood and even Fleet Street in Southeast Baltimore, those corridors are really at the upper end of the threshold. Like if they were any busier, we would probably reject them too. The other point that I want to make, and I know there's a time limit, the legislation was very aggressive. Originally, when it was passed, DOT was given 14 days to implement all 25 miles and do all the public outreach. And as an agency, we were very honest with the city council and said, we can't do that. We're willing to work with you guys on the program. We're going to need the city council to take the lead on community outreach. and that every single slow street that was implemented received approval and essentially sponsorship from that city council member. So if you really, really want a good shot at your slow street being implemented, I definitely recommend lobbying your local city council representative, because this is a program that they advanced and they want to select slow streets that are going to be embraced and programmed and truly appreciated by the public. So that is actually, you know, my best advice, because there's certain slow streets that we thought made sense, that we submitted to council members, and you know, sometimes they thought they'd rather do this. So that's a really key and integral part of this process too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Liam. If it's okay, I'll let us move to the next special guest, but I want to just emphasize what Liam, who is our liaison to the Baltimore City DOT, what he has said is that if the Livable Streets Coalition wants to put our heads together, identify some slow streets to request, and do the community organizing and planning of activities that will bring that slow street to life. If we want to do that, we're in a good position to be heard, to have our request really considered. So thank you, Liam. You heard it here and it's on the record. So we're going to play this back to Mr. Young. MDOT. Okay,
Sounds
thank
good.
you. And I think what you did, Liam, was really perfectly give us an opportunity to bring Professor Nicole on, if she is ready, to talk just for maybe 2 minutes. Hi, Nicole. Yeah. If you could talk for just...
I'll keep it quick. Yes.
But if you could make the connection for everyone, make the connection between the opportunity to design and activate slow streets and the work you do in the Ecological Design Collaborative.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, great. My name is Nicole Abrito. Thank you so much, Robin, for having me here. I'm so inspired by the work you're doing, and the presentations today have been so informative and helpful. There's so much to say, but I won't do that. I am a cultural anthropologist. I'm trained to study living, breathing people, where they are and how they relate to the world around them. Sometimes it's called culture. As Robin knows, who is also trained in anthropology, it's a sticky concept, but we are out, the benchmark or hallmark of anthropological research is to go and do research, long-term research on site, and learn about how people engage and interact with their world, the power dynamics at play, the material world around them, and how that shapes the range of possibilities for what a reality is for a group of people. So in true anthropologist fashion, I am on a slow street. This is Barclay and 31st Street, and I am here looking at all these cars go by. Granted, it's a very busy moment for this street because it's the Waverly Farmer Market Day, but this is the slow street near where I live. So that's why I wasn't ready before I was getting here. I decided to go on site and give you all a glimpse as I talk of this slow street. There are no tables or parks or other amenities which have been erased as a possible limitation for the slow streets implementation. I've used it during the pandemic to walk with my kids in their stroller, and it really was successful when there weren't a lot of cars around, but people aren't exactly respecting it on a busy day like today. So, you know, there are ways to think about this. There are ways to study this. Human-centered design is one such approach that is very amenable to anthropological research as a kind of complementary methodology. So at the Ecological Design Center, at the Ecological Design Collaborative, we, sorry, cars going by. We work with MICA designers, we work with engineers, we work with community members, we work with activists. Mostly at the moment, we're working with all Black founded and Black led organizations to try to create design interventions that will better their projects that they have already. Hopkins has a tremendous amount of resources, and Hopkins has not always had the greatest community relations, and that's an understatement. Hopkins has terrible community relations. And so my colleagues and I are looking to try to change that and try to have a different approach. And I know it takes a lot of trust for certain community members to trust Johns Hopkins because of the legacy of exploitation, the legacy of redlining, the legacy of experimentation, quite literally, from the hospital. We're based in the School of Arts and Sciences, but we do have colleagues in the School of Public Health, in the School of Engineering, and as I said, we've engaged community members to try to put their visions first and their priorities first, to garner and gather the resources and expertise of Hopkins people to complement the work that's being done. So I'm very excited to be sort of in conversation at this early stage of planning and thinking and dreaming for Livable Streets. And I guess that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the Ecological Design Collective is what we're called, and we're excited to have new members. Anyone interested in the intersections of ecology, design, anthropology, community, that's what we're up to.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
for having me.
Nicole. I just want to salute you for doing what we love in the Livable Streets Coalition, and that's going outside and being on the street, looking at it, experiencing it. Thank you for taking us out into the world. And DOT, I want you to see how cars are swerving around that barricade right now.
Buses, trucks, it's been a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I totally saw that, and yeah, it was scary there for a second.
Yeah.
So definitely something we got to work on.
Nicole, in the projects that you do, just real quickly, have you and your colleagues and students and community partners looked at any traffic slowing interventions?
We have not to date. So we launched a year and a half ago. We had food as the focus. My research personally focuses on sustainability, food, agriculture, and I've done work in Brazil as well as here in Baltimore. So food was really the focus, foodways and urban food systems. This year, because of the pandemic, we didn't exactly have a theme, but we're working with the Baltimore Compost Collective. So I guess keeping with that, that food theme at the moment, coincidentally. So yeah, but we're a relatively new organization. As I said, we just launched last year. And so we plan to have multiple thematic focuses. And when Lee Davis at MICA put me in touch with Robin and Robin in touch with me, I was so excited to learn about this because as I was explaining to Robin, what I think is really powerful about Livable Streets is that it takes this concrete thing, this thing in the world. It's a bunch of, it's an infrastructure, but it brings together so many different issues at different scales that is a very powerful mobilizing entity. You can bring, it's about safety, it's about community, it's about greening, it's about public health. There's so many intersections that come across when you just look at this pavement on the ground, this thing that people walk on and engage with and interact with from their cars, on their feet, on their bikes, on scooters that they're riding around on. So yeah, I'm just so excited about the possibilities for thinking about this from all these different perspectives that I come from and with the people I work with.
Thank you, Nicole. You just made an advertisement for the Livable Streets Coalition. We're going to be using that clip of you. Thank you so much. Really grateful that you're here and that you're willing to maybe be a partner for the work that our community wants to do.
Thank you so much. It'd be an honor. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So I'll let you get back to your Waverly Market shopping, and I'd love for and I'd love for us in the last 10 minutes or so that we're together here, I would like to launch one last poll. Part of the business of this meeting was for us to create work groups, Livable Streets Coalition work groups. In the year that we've been together, we've talked and met and thought, but it's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work on the business of making our streets better for humans. I'd like to launch a quick poll, and my right-hand woman, Amelia, is going to help me with that. I'm going to invite all of you here who are members of the coalition who wish to get involved in the hands-on work of transforming our streets to make a commitment to joining a work group. We have narrowed down, based on the what I've heard all of you say over the last year, based on your calls and cries and demands, 3 big themes I think have come up. So while Amelia's launching that, get your finger ready, get your pointers ready, and make a commitment to get to work. There are 3 options for the work groups. And these are based on what the members have asked for. First, a work group that focuses on Orleans Street and the opportunities that are available, whatever those may be, to slow traffic and create a more healthy and humane environment on Orleans. The second work group will focus on slow streets and play streets. For those of you who've requested slow streets or who want to do something to expand healthy space during COVID and beyond, that might be the work group for you. And third is the strategic planning work group. This really is going to be a kind of steering committee. And I'll be dead honest with you guys, I'm stretched so thin. A lot of the thinking and planning has been on my shoulders, and I would love to have some creative and committed folks who wanted to plan to make a roadmap for this coalition, what we could do in the next 12 months. This includes grant writing and fundraising for projects. If you guys say we want to paint an intersection, we want to hire Graham Correll Allen, the brilliant muralist in Baltimore, to give us a painted crosswalk like they have at Druid Hill. That costs money. We need fundraising. We need people who can think about work planning and coalition building. There are people in organizations like the Downtown Baltimore Family Alliance who are really keen on making our city welcoming for families. We need to work with them. There's the National Federation of the Blind, an advocacy group for people with visual challenges. They want to work with us, but what are we going to do together? I need folks ready to think in that strategic and fine-grained way. So in the next 5 seconds, I want you to take your clicker finger and pick a work group. So Amelia, you're watching them. Are they filling it in? I can't tell.
Yeah, 9 of the 17 participants.
Okay. I know not everyone lives in the footprint, but for those of you who do, or even if you're outside and you just want to get involved. How many now, Amelia?
We have 10 now.
I'm going to keep talking till you guys all pick a work. So
Delegate Lewis, can I add that we have a couple of we're aware of a couple of grant programs now that are really designed for the kind of work that we're talking about. And so I would encourage you to, if you're interested in the strategic work group, to be prepared to like get started right away, because that would be great.
Yeah, there's some November deadlines, aren't there, Carol?
There are, yeah.
And thank you so much for raising it. And the other thing is, speaking about strategy, Livable Streets Coalition, it's just an affiliation of people who care. We don't have a board structure. We don't have a fiscal structure. We would, if we wanted to pursue grant funding for a project, we'd have to do that through a local nonprofit. Who would that be? National Federation of the Blind, DBFA, Banner Neighborhoods, Patterson Park Neighborhood, Upper Fells. Kurt, you're sitting there, I see you. Your potential partner. Brian Steele, I know, is in, are you Fells Prospect? In any case, doesn't matter. 501c3s could partner with us. So that is serious work and it would have to kick off quickly. Okay, how are we doing, Amelia?
We have 11, so let me know when you want to end the poll.
Okay, well, I guess the people with all the energy have already responded. So let's look at the results.
Okay, can everyone see the results shared?
Yes, thank you so much, Amelia. So we've got now, half the people want to do strategy. Awesome, awesome. And about a third want to do the other. So did people, could they choose more than one, Amelia? Choose one.
Just one.
Okay, that's even better. So you're ready to focus. I'm so grateful. I want to look at the chat for a second. Can we do 2 work groups? I said, oh, Mary wants to do overachiever. Overachiever. Yeah, you, because you asked for it, you're going to be on all of them. Okay. Signing up for, yeah, thanks, Marlon. I see it now. So, Amelia, what do you think? Should we let people join more than one work group?
I think so. It depends on the workload. If the strategic planning is a little bit more of a lift, then it's just something to consider.
Yeah, but they asked for it, so. So, okay,
They asked
Amelia
for it.
says yes, you can join 2 work groups. So we're going to make that happen. And what we'll do after this meeting, thank you all so much. Thank you all. You guys are so awesome. You guys make me make my life worth living. So what we're going to do, we're going to wind up, right, Amelia? We're going to wind up this meeting. I want to thank my amazing presenter, Carol Kachadurian, the active transportation planner. I forgot to mention that Carol was seconded to help us by AARP, which is a Livable Streets Coalition partner. The presentation you did was so wonderful. We learned so much and we'll use it again. Thank you so much for your time. We're lucky to have had you with us. I want to thank our special guests, Professor Labruto and Liam Davis from the city DOT. And I want to thank every single one of you who took out time in your beautiful Saturday morning to hang out with me and everyone else. Thank you for committing to join a work group. After this meeting, you're going to get a quick summary and a thank you and a summary of what we talked about with the links. We're going to put the recorded presentation on our YouTube page, so it'll be there for posterity and sharing. And we'll start activating the work groups, right? We'll start looking at, we'll use email and Zoom and whatever to start conversations about what will happen next. This is going to be led by you guys because your delegate is pretty much at the end of her rope these days, and we'll be leaning on you a lot to carry this forward. So if there are any last minute questions in the chat, everyone's got to go. Thank you. Thank you once again, and we will be in touch. Livable Streets Coalition, talk to you soon. Bye now. Bye-bye.